Competition in the robotaxi market is heating up because Tesla has entered the market, and the response of the incumbents has been to increase their supply and to announce a number of cooperations. For example, Waymo has announced a cooperation with Uber in Austin and maybe even other cities, so you can hail Waymo on the Uber app. We saw cooperation between Uber and other companies, and then we saw cooperations between lots of car manufacturers and NVIDIA, who wants to offer the algorithmic and hardware backbone for anybody to train a self-driving car on the NVIDIA platform. So there's a lot of competition. Now, I think for us Tesla investors, this is relevant for at least three particular vectors that we need to think about. First, we need to think about the short-term consequences of this, in particular, how it will impact the adoption of the Cybercab network. Second, we should think about this in the midterm in terms of how Tesla can or might not be, but at least must try to compete and size up the network towards a dominant position. And then third, we want to combine the Cybercab network with the Optimus and see where that can lead us. So fundamentally, I think the fear right now in the market, there's a fear in the market, particularly from Tesla investors. And the fear is that we have Tesla going very slow, really piecemeal in the Bay Area and Austin with Robotaxi network. It's the Robotaxi network right now, so they're all Model Ys. There's probably, I think there's about 10 unsupervised Robotaxis driving around Austin, and there's about 500 and change of Robotaxis with safety drivers. The fear is that that is going very slow, while Waymo, in particular, is scaling up much faster, particularly in the Bay Area and Austin, so where Tesla is. The other thing that people have been noticing is that the prices are very similar, not just with Waymo, but also with Uber. So what's happening here is a competitive response by Uber and Waymo, or let's call them the incumbents, just to avoid listing all the possible players in all the possible markets. So the incumbents are pricing against Tesla, saying, look, the only reason somebody might switch right now from an Uber to a Tesla is really price. So we're just going to match price. Now, Tesla investors don't believe that that's true, and I think anybody who's used these services will attest that there's a massive difference between Robotaxi and any other service. Now, if we skip all the driven cars and we just focus on Waymo, then the jury is open. You could argue that it's pretty much the same experience, and it's just a matter of taste. So the experience is the same. You don't have a driver. The car drives by itself. In fact, actually, with Waymo, you really don't have a driver, versus with Tesla, you do have a safety driver. So for safety reasons and things like that, people might actually prefer Waymos. We see a lot more people using Waymos in the Bay Area than we see people using Robotaxis, but that's also just because there's a lot more Waymos. Now, the fear in the Tesla community and the Tesla shorts, or the hope of the Tesla shorts, is that that Waymo can actually just kill demand. You know, that yes, maybe there's a better service coming, but because it's similar price and everybody's already on the network, you have that network effect. So it's kind of like maybe like YouTube. YouTube is not the best service, but because everybody's there and there's a network effect, you can just you just don't want to switch, download the Tesla app, do the payments and all that when you're already on Uber. And then there's all these other things you can do with Uber, get points here, get points there, Uber Eats and all that stuff, the bundling and all that stuff. So that's the fear. And right now, that is probably, that is the situation in the market. Now, I would say the real fear, in my opinion, is that this will continue and that Google will try to suffocate Tesla by just throwing a lot of money at this, because Google is losing a lot of money per ride. I would say the gross margins per ride are negative. There's no public information on this, and just the fact that there is no public information already, I think, says everything. So the money is being lost. The only information we have is that other services at Google are losing billions of dollars per year, which is peanuts for the Google balance sheet. But of course, in the competitive race that you are as Tesla, if your competitor is willing to lose billions of dollars per year, you have a problem there. Now, how is Tesla going to counter this? And the way Tesla is countering this is by the three vectors of any kind of tech company, particularly a real-world tech company, and that is lower cost, higher comfort, and more safety. So those are the three vectors that Tesla is relentlessly driving towards: lower cost, higher comfort, and more safety. Now, these three things are, of course, these three vectors are a little bit more complex. For example, lower cost, I think that's probably one of the more simpler ones. You just have, you basically, a lower cost per mile allows you to deliver a lower price service with intact margins. And Tesla is aiming at about 5x, probably between 5 and 10x, depending on how you scale production and what the depreciation is and the mileage and things like that. But I think one of the more important vectors that Tesla can turn on is comfort. And with comfort, it's not just the comfiness of a Cybercab or a Robotaxi, which is arguably a little bit more comfortable than a Waymo, but it's of course also the network and the wait times and the availability. Because if you can tune up thousands of Cybercabs in one shot and offer them in an urban area, then the network effects could kick in very quickly and take a lot of demand away from incumbents. That is probably the most likely scenario. So you have, let's say, 1,000 Cybercabs in the Austin area delivering minute wait times at, let's say, 3-4 times lower cost. Tesla might be losing money on that service in the beginning, but it would be impossible for Waymo to match that, at least in the short run. I mean, they can, of course, order many Zeekers and maybe offer something more aggressive. But I think that is, in my opinion, the best response that Tesla can give. And then, of course, they can scale anywhere at any time because they own the factory, they are fully integrated all the way down to the chips. And they can also offer a much more flexible AI because they are not on rails. It's not digital, it's not digital trains on rails or trains on rails, on digital rails, excuse me. It is real AI based on vision. Now, having said that, the question then is, why is Tesla taking their time? Why aren't they faster? And the reason is because they're not ready yet. So this is simply a time delay because technology is not ready, and you can't iterate in the real world with technology that is not ready. What Waymo is doing is basically patching the tail end with human operators and with let's say like explicit software, if this then that, all that kind of stuff, which is of course not scalable. And I think the way this is gonna go most likely is that Tesla will force Google's hand, so they will scale to the thousands per market, and Google just can't match that because they're scaling linearly with the tail. Like you have 200 Waymos. To get 1,000 Waymos, you need to have 5 times more operators. You're going to have 5 times more tail situations. If those tail situations are not solved through AI, you cannot scale. I think that is the key advantage that Tesla has. That's why they're waiting now. So in our opinion, Waymo is scaling into a dead end versus Tesla is slowly putting, opening up a trail that actually will eventually bring much more scalability, lower costs, and higher comfort to the market. So this is, as we said, sort of the short-term reaction, maybe in the next year, 18 months. Now, midterm is where we're now talking tens of thousands of cybercabs around the US, China, and Europe and other areas of the world. In this, the scalability actually just continues, because once you solve this tail, once the tails are solved with AI, you can scale at scale. You can scale, pretty rapidly around the world, and it's inconceivable that anybody, not just Waymo, but anybody else, can catch up. Now, the regulatory barriers are real, and we've seen also one of the Waymo executives, the pseudo CEO that they have, a lady that I don't know what her role is, but she calls herself co-CEO. Anyway, she was sort of giving an interview in the New York Times where she was basically asking for regulatory capture. So we can already see that Waymo is anticipating a scenario like this, and they're trying to stop Tesla through regulatory capture. I think we'll see more of that, and so therefore in the midterm, the battle will be less on the tech and scaling front, and a lot more on the regulatory front, which of course is difficult to predict. But the best way forward here is decentralization, playing constituencies against each other, offering better services at lower cost at scale to people. And then once people have the ability to to get transport at lower cost and higher comfort, everybody else will have to follow suit. You can't keep your own people away from this. Because think about it, whether it's Uber, Waymo, Lyft, any of these companies, they're not really tech companies. They're not even disruptive companies, because they haven't really lowered the price. The price of transportation hasn't changed. Service has increased a little bit. Actually, arguably with Waymo, it's even decreased, with Uber. So I would say the yellow cabs and all those cab companies 10 years ago were even better than what Uber is today. Maybe the lines are a bit less and you have the scheduling, but it's arguably not much better. And, a lot of these 2010 business models, food delivery and ride hailing, they really haven't changed people's lives too much. People are a bit more lazy and they pay a lot more for the same service. Actually, very similar also with Netflix and the streaming. So a lot of these so-called disruptive technologies have shown not to be disruptive, because the incumbents have been able to catch up, and most importantly, the prices have not been lowered. So the first real disruptor in transportation is Tesla, because Tesla is coming at it through the lens of energy and the lens of transportation and the lens of compute. And that's once you have a comprehensive solution to a problem like Tesla, that's the only way you can actually lower the cost. And lower cost, every company eventually is defined by their cost structure. That's, I mean, this is midterms about 5 years. Now, the long run, and this is the most exciting part of Tesla, is of course once you have a fully automated transportation supply chain. So you have the Optimus filling in all the manual labor and physical labor, the maintenance, the cleaning, on the logistics side, the loading and unloading, and all of these kinds of problems that today still are offered, let's say, by humans, or there is a lot of bottlenecks in the services because there is, the truck has to go from A to B and then reloaded and uploaded and maintained and cleaned and charged. And all these things can be done by a network of robots. And the whole network can actually be optimized a little bit like an internet, and the people are packets moving around. That, of course, is long run, but we see a huge opportunity there for Tesla to be a true transportation as a service provider by offering a networked service of robots that drive around, clean, maintain. That is the long run. I think that's the vision that Tesla sees. And of course, in that vision, you need to have fully functioning real world AI. You need to have a very complex backend with a very simple front end. And that is exactly what Tesla is offering with Cybercab and also with Optimus. So to summarize, the situation that Tesla is in right now is one where they are launching a service which has been designed and built to be scalable globally, and that can automate all the parts of the service in a fully AI mode. So it's not like It's not a digital, it's not a car on digital rails. It is a real robot that acts in the real world. It's passive, so it's not active like a robot will be, like an Optimus, but it's of course a big leap, and we're already taking it for granted. Now, I want to just add one more thing, and that is the fact that, of course, one thing that Tesla has, which is the 800-pound gorilla that people actually don't talk that much about, is the fact that it's not just the Cybercab and Robotaxi network, which is self-driving, but also every other person who owns a Tesla has also a self-driving Tesla that can be loaded up to the network. So you have this flexible adjustment of demand that Tesla can offer through their actual through their customers. You also have the the integration of Grok into the car. So there's a couple of things that Tesla can do, and I will call this sort of the midterm solution. I think in the short term, Tesla will go on their own and build those markets and create cash flows and asset-backed securities that then can be leveraged for other people. So you can buy 10 Teslas and securitize the cost and securitize the cash flows, excuse me, and invest the money that you securitize with and buy more Teslas and really grow your network. The key is this: transportation is an incredibly expensive service right now. The margins are incredibly high if you can automate the service, and that is what Tesla is doing. On top of that, if you can flexibly adjust supply, then you also have a big bottleneck solved. So supply inventory is a big bottleneck in the car business in general. I mean, Zeekr can't just have thousands of cars sitting around offering them to Waymo. Somebody has to pay for this. So Tesla is solving two fundamental problems. One is the high cost of, actually three fundamental problems. High depreciation solved by lower cost production. Second, automating the service maintenance. And third, automating through the actual robot that is full real AI, but also like Grok and maintenance and Optimus. And then third, we also have a flexible supply. So the inventory cost also is coming down. So three of the main cost factors of a taxi network are being solved in one shot by the Tesla approach. And that's why we believe Tesla will, in the long run, become a very large player in the transportation as a service market.